What's up, guys? Welcome to Get a Grip with Kendall Roosing. I'm here with Jamie Kilstein. What's
Hello.
up, Jamie?
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I just made every woman in this room give me relationship advice for an hour. And so if I look mentally exhausted, I'm very happy to be here. I just have a lot of big decisions I have to make on the drive home.
You also got beat up by children today.
I got beat up by children.
Or yesterday.
Can I tell you the worst injury I've ever gotten?
Yes.
Look, I talk about mental health a lot. And I think that when people spiral, when you're doing bad shit in your life and bad stuff happens, you go, yeah, that's right.
Karma.
That makes sense, right? And then you learn from it, you fix it, whatever. When it really fucks you, when you're doing the right things and bad stuff happens and you just go, what do you want from me? What do you all want from me? Where
No good deed goes unpunished, Jamie.
So 20 years of bad Jiu Jitsu hips. So my hips are like messed up.
Right.
But where the
salsa dancing.
No salsa dancing. Right. I'm a shoe gazing white guy. I just a lot of nodding. I'm a drummer and I can't dance.
Sidestepping little snaps.
Little snaps.
All right.
So I where the pop came.
Yeah.
Not jiu-jitsu, nothing cool, no cool story, not like, oh, I was doing rounds of Volkanovski. It was duck, goose volunteering at church.
No way.
And I just heard, first of all, Sula, who's laughing off mic. I was crushing it in duck, goose. Because, all right, so here's what happened. So it was adults. And I took this very seriously because it was for all the church volunteers and I was a new volunteer. So they were like, play duck, goose. That'll be fun.
Right.
Yeah. And so there were a bunch of girls and then there were two jacked church boys, just like Texan. One was like 6'5", one was just stocky. And so I was like, I'm fucking prison rules. I'm taking out the big dudes first.
Let's go.
And so knocked them out. It's just like me and two girls left. One of the guys like leapt up onto the stage, skipped the stairs. Even though he was taller than me, I managed to pull it off. The crowd gasped. By the way, this is not what you're supposed to be doing in church. It's not about ego and pride and me being like, I'm smashing that big guy.
We are all one.
And then, I tagged the last girl. I run 2 steps and I just hear like pop, 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 pop. And what was so sad is like my eyes started to water.
Oh.
And I was like, one of the church guys in the seat, he was just mad that I beat him. He just goes, you got beat by a girl. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. But and so then what they do for the volunteers is the worship band comes and they play one song and you like worship together before we like open the doors. And it was like this like hallelujah song. And I'm standing there with tears in my eyes. And so many people must have just been like, this new volunteer, this is what happens when you bring Christ into your life.
So
and I was like, my groin is falling out of my leg. Like, I was just in so much pain. And so I mean, couldn't walk, couldn't sit down, couldn't like so beat up. Got so depressed where I was like, what else am I supposed to do, man? God doesn't even want me there. That's my side. Like you tell yourself crazy stories when you're depressed. Yeah. And then it's been about a month and a half, way better. And then yesterday I was teaching kids jiu-jitsu and there was some sad little kid doing the prom dance with no date, wander around the dance floor. And I was like, hey, little buddy, I got you.
I was going to say, I'll be your date, but you should leave that
out.
Nope,
trying to keep that gig. I'm literally just like, buddy, like, not only do you have a partner, you got the cool coach. And then we were rolling and it was great. And then I went to do like hip bump, sweep him gently. And I just heard pop, pop, pop. And again, you can't. There's a child in front of you and I don't want to scar him. Yeah. So I just go, good job, switch partners. And then I just like limped off the mat.
Relatable.
So that's what happened to me.
Wow. Okay. So not only are you a duck goose phenomenon.
Yeah.
Or phenom. That's not the right word.
I
didn't
even fucking win. I was you at the fucking finals, dude.
That hurt my heart.
I knocked out the big guys.
And
I was like, we're going to win.
Then you're on the ground.
Just some fucking girl. Second place.
Girl. Let's go. So not only the duck goose king, but you're also a comedian.
I am a
host of Advice Not Taken podcast, which I was so lucky to be on.
People loved you. Loved you.
So great. I had a great time. And I think it's important to mention that you talk so much about mental health on your Instagram, on your podcast.
I jammed it into the duck goose story.
We already got that. We already mentioned depression. We're name dropping.
Yeah.
We're calling these guys out.
What else do I have? Anxiety, undiagnosed dyslexia. I was born in the 90s, or I was born in the 80s, but I
was like, I don't know about
no, I know. Come on.
We lying on the internet now.
Dude, also, do girls like neg guys now? Some girl came up to me on the street and she literally just touched. She was really pretty too. And usually, like, I have to have some kind of. Usually, random girls don't approach me unless they know me. And she was like, she goes, "You have a sexy style." And I go, "Thanks."
Just off the street, like
off the street. And then we started talking. And then 5 minutes later, she goes, "So, like, tell me, like, are you homeless?" And I was like, "What is this? Why?" This happened 3 days ago, and it was because I had a backpack, which, by the way, I was handing out sandwiches to homeless people by myself to be good. And once again, I was just like being rewarded. And then she's like, and I go, "No, why? I thought I had a good
No, are
style."
you? You should have said, "No, are you homeless?"
I have a sandwich. You want a sandwich? And then she goes, "No, I would have helped you." And I was like, "All right." And then she's like, "Let's go dancing." I was like, "I'm gonna go keep handing out sandwiches."
Wow.
So it's been a wild week, dude.
It's been a wild week. So, okay, well, in the midst of your wild week, obviously we're here. Get a Grip I remember when I announced the name of the podcast and you were like, "I normally don't like play on words, but I kind of like this one."
That was exactly that. I got so excited.
But I like yours.
I loved the title. Yeah.
Thank you. So, first question, you can be as tangible, logical, or philosophical, funny, whatever you want to throw at it. What does it mean to you to have a grip? Your eyes got so big. Yeah. To have a grip on your life when you feel like, man, I'm really doing this shit. I'm feeling good. I'm on the right track. I have things together. And it doesn't mean, of course, like I think we talk about this with mental health. Like this isn't a 24/7 never changing thing. But when you really feel those moments, those beautiful moments of I have a grip on things, what would that mean to you?
Well, obviously blindly throwing yourself into a relationship way too fast.
I mean, clearly.
Missing every red flag imaginable until you come to do a podcast and beg for advice.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
You watched me through it. It's fine. Yeah. We've all been there.
Pink hair Kendall.
Pink hair Kendall. This is getting way too well known now.
Okay. I mean, it's hard, right? It's usually at a time where it's a very delicate balance. I mean, again, it's like good jiu-jitsu, right? Like being aggressive, going hard, but also like being able to like relax, flow, listen to what your opponent's doing, all that, breathe.
Have fun.
And if you're doing one too much, if you're flowing a little too much, you get smashed. If you're going a little too hard, maybe you're being spazzy, right? And you miss something. What I've noticed is the times I've just been locked in, and I mean the last couple of months have been solo, completely by myself, which I've been codependent in relationships. I've relationship jumped. So it's just like comfortable in being by myself.
Is this the longest you've been like totally alone?
Yeah. And I purposefully, like I've taken hookups off the table, like anything casual. I'm just like either going to be by myself, working on myself, or like a girlfriend who I think would, then it's someone that I think will be the one, or else I'm just like, don't have time. I would rather build myself up more.
I love
so there's like the obvious stuff that you hear people say on podcasts, which is like, I'm meditating, I'm learning about myself, I'm getting in touch with nature and spirituality, I'm training harder. And even with this injury where it's like, I was never an athlete before this, so combat sports is all I like.
Right.
Like I failed out of gym class in high school, and people go, "That's hyperbole, right?" It's like, no, you can fail out of gym class. And then they go, "How?" And you go, "You just get stoned and say you forgot your shorts every day," which is what I did. And then I just watch kids play dodgeball like dummies.
Oh my God.
But I fell in love with fighting when I was like 17, and
watching, or were you training then?
Training.
Okay, so you started training at 17.
I started training MMA when it was, and I promise I'll circle back to this, but I always love talking about this because there's so many like, you know, the superstars right now are very young. Right? Yeah.
You've been a brown belt for a long time though.
It's that. I did a sketch once, like a solo sketch over COVID, that I was like a brown belt telling you what belt he is. And it was totally based off me. It was like, well, technically I'm a brown belt, but like I moved a lot, and like, oh, there was a divorce and I had to go to like LA, and like everyone that I used to like tap out a lot, they're all black belts now.
They're all winning the world
under Marcelo Garcia. So like, what does that make me? I don't know, a coral belt. But I'm very good at jiu-jitsu. But I was training back when it was like shady.
Yeah.
Back when it was like a blue belt in a garage. It was like all you could find. And like UFC, it was on like video cassette, and it was in the porn room of video stores because it was like considered like snuff.
Right.
Whereas like, oh, cage fighting, it was illegal in like almost every state but Alabama. There were like no rules. Hoist Gracie was fighting like sumo wrestlers. It was batshit crazy.
Right.
And that's when I was like, this is where, you know, you just show up, you have a blue belt. Yeah. But also some of the best training in the world because he only knows so much. And then the rest of the time, you're just fighting people who are walking in off the street from the strip mall. And this guy's like, I'm a Krav Maga guy. And they're like, all right, Jamie, you've been here for 3 months. Fight him and show him he's wrong. And then I do that. A lot of military guys would come in who were just tough, but like, we didn't know how to fight, but like, we fought.
Yeah. We didn't know. I like that quote. We didn't know how to fight, but man, we fucking fought.
Dude. Yeah. I mean, that was it. And so fell in love with it. So with depression, again, my problem when I get injured from jiu-jitsu and people are like, well, just lift weights. I'm like, that's what stupid people do. Like, I like fighting. But the way I spun it is 2 things. One, firearms, it's not exercise, but it's self-defense. So I'm focusing a lot. And I was
going to say it's also demanding the same way jiu-jitsu is, whereas you can't lose focus for half a second. Right.
So Tim Kennedy's been helping me. All the guys at Sheepdog have been helping me. And I've been taking shooting like part of my job. So I'm training with that.
Yeah.
And then I do kind of want to lift weights because it sucks that I've been fighting since, 2000, and I've never looked like an athlete besides like my ears, like I've never had abs. Your
ears are pretty gnarly.
They're gnarly.
That's true.
My brothers are far worse. They're like Randy Couture inside out. My brother's ears have gotten him out of bar fights.
Wow.
Yeah, like 2 drunk dudes like came up to him once, and my brother's like me. He's gonna de-escalate and be like, "Hey guys, you don't want to do this."
Yeah.
And they were like, "No, man, we're gonna." And then one of the guys, like a scene in a horror movie, just like slowly pointed at his ears and just goes, "Bro, no." And they're like, we're sorry. And they walked away.
Smart guys.
Smart, super smart. Situationally aware. And so
you want to start lifting, right?
I want to start lifting, yeah. So, I mean, I can't do like lower body really. And when this injury first happened, it was so bad. I mean, we're kind of back to there actually with the re-injury, but it was so bad that I tried to bench press like 20-pound dumbbells and I just put on like BFR bands because I can do heavy with my upper body, but I can't
support yourself with your lower,
so I was like, okay, 20 pounds, great. And then I dropped it off the bench. And then suddenly I was like, I can't get off the bench. And so I'm sure so many people listening have had this injury, like some kind of growing thing where whether it was getting off the bench or even in bed when I would wake up in the middle of the night, I literally couldn't like take my legs off the bed.
Right.
So you have to just fucking roll. Like suicide roll, like barrel roll off and then land like a cat and just like hope you like land the right way. So I did that. So anyway, back to grounding. That's how you know I'm a fucking professional podcaster.
There you go.
That tangent brought it back.
I love it.
I all that stuff I'm working on, and it feels so good. And I'll literally wake up every day, not just like ecstatic, and like I'll say a prayer, and I'll go out in nature, go to bed, blah blah blah. But there still is the underlying like, I'm by myself, whatever, and all it takes is like one Netflix rom-com Christmas commercial and I'm just like, I'm gonna die alone. And then you go, what happened to this like confident man? Because I mean, to be honest, like part of the reason I'm working on all this stuff is like I do want to be a good husband and a good father and a good role model and stuff like that. And so then you just go, well, what if they're not gonna come? And so the reason that I added that caveat is because if you're listening to this and you do feel like I'm doing all the right things, this is the most grounded, this is the most that I feel like I have a grip on my fucking life. It can still be offset, and that doesn't mean that all of that work is gone. It's still there.
Like you're not gonna be able to access it again.
Yeah. And so like,
well, how do you feel like you find your way to pull yourself back into that? And I hesitate to even say back in because I really don't believe in going backwards in the way that people normally say, like, I remember when I was in such good shape and I really want to get back there, right? I think that's dangerous language because we're never going back there. That doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't mean you lost what got you there, but we're in a new place.
I mean, I have addict personality where I'm like, I want to go farther. Like if something bad happens or if I get set back, like that's why I'm like, dude, I know I'm good at fighting. So it's like, I just want to come back fucking jacked with a firearm, that's, I always want, if something bad happens to me, I'm like, how do I come out on top.
So would you say that having a grip on your life then would your like I loved what you started with all these different aspects of things that you're working on, but the flow, like comparing it to jiu-jitsu and rolling, I think is so brilliant because it is like you want to have that aggression, that push forward, but you also got to have the flow and take what comes and
the
you
presence.
Presence and being in the present moment. So would you say that when you feel like you're having a grip on your life, it's not having all your ducks in a row perfectly, but noticing the moments where you kind of dip and then you bring yourself back up because you're able to pinpoint what was missing.
That's it. And you can't do that without presence. And one of the things that I think buries people, I've been talking a lot about this on my podcast, is these narratives we come up with ourselves. So that duck, duck, goose narrative for me is just a different version of the you'll never be good enough. You'll never be good enough for this girl. You'll never be good enough for this group of friends. You'll never be good enough for jiu-jitsu. Yeah, you'll never be good enough for this church. You'll never be good enough for whatever. And so we get hooked on these stories. And you know this, when you hear your friend tell these stories, when they're just like, I'm just the girl that always gets cheated on. You go, well, just stop. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Stop saying that. Stop
that objective.
Yeah. You just go, no, stop dating fucking idiots. You're missing some stuff.
But when you bring your personal emotion into that scenario, it's you're so subjective. It's very hard.
Yeah. And so like not being attached to these stories, which again has to do with being flowy and adaptive. If the story was, if when I got thrown off, if I stuck to, I'll just never belong. Why am I doing this? You know, whatever. Then I start to self-medicate. Then I just spiral. But if I go, okay, you're probably just telling yourself a story right now because you're really upset. So let's like bring it back. Thinking of all the things I've accomplished, thinking of all the stuff I've gotten out of before, thinking of all the really good things. Like when I get upset sometimes and I pray, it's not, and people talk about like yelling at God and stuff, which I love, like being like, hey, what the fuck, bud? Like, I thought we were doing the right thing.
We're on the right same team here.
But it always morphs for me into gratitude.
And love bombing yourself.
Yeah. And whenever you do that.
Being your own narcissist.
Yeah.
No, I mean, not really,
dude,
but kind of.
I was driving to, I know you had Tim Kennedy on the show. I did their trauma response, their tactical trauma course.
Yeah.
But which I couldn't even fucking put my knee on a dude's hip to like put on the tourniquet. And I was just like, just stay down, buddy. But I went to do that and I'm driving there and the story could be, I can't believe I fucking got hurt right before this. I'm not going to be as physically active as I want. Or the story could be, what a badass that I'm still driving to go train with Green Berets. And like, they're going to work around me. And like, how fucking cool is this? And then I'm still going to like come and do this podcast. And I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like
you're reframing to build yourself. Like I love when people talk about self-esteem. How does self-esteem happen? Well, it's through completing esteemable acts.
That's a great way to put it.
So
yes,
simple.
Of course.
So if you reframe things that are happening to you in a way that is like, man, this is an esteemable act. I'm doing something hard and I'm sticking to my word, whatever it is. It's like that totally changes the story that you're telling.
Dude, when Tim came on my podcast, he just goes, make your bed. Yeah. Make your bed. I don't know if he talked about that.
Do something you don't want to do. No, he didn't mention it to me by the concept.
But also you're starting your morning doing the right thing. Yeah. Right. And Jocko talks about that too. He's like, if you hit the snooze button, your first decision that you're telling your brain for the entire day is a loss. Right. Whereas when you wake up, your first move is a fucking win. Then you make the bed. Win.
You know,
right?
Joe Dispenza talks about that. I just got back from a retreat with him. So
I saw that. It looked awesome.
Oh my gosh. But I'm so in his work right now. He talks about taming the animal. He's like, your mind has to be in charge of your body, not your body in charge of your mind. And people use that like Goggins talks about that as far as like exercise, but really just as far as decision making. Like my mind is in charge. Like my body is an animal. Right. Like I need to tame the animal. You listen to me. Like with meditation, he talks about meditation so much because it's so much of his work. It's like, okay, you're going to have that cup of coffee. You're going to check your phone. But first you're going to sit your ass down and you're going to do what I say. Yeah. Like that's huge to start your day like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And the every time, and at least now I can catch myself every time. And this always happens when there's like a new relationship or something. Of
course,
every time I start checking my phone before reading, because usually it goes phones away for the first half an hour, first hour. So coffee, read, light still dim, pray. If I'm really killing it, meditate, look at my phone. And then I can put my phone away and even go back to reading and concentrate.
Yeah.
The times I pick up my phone first I look at the book and I go, do I not know how to read?
Right.
Like my attention is already.
Your energy is not with you. You're giving it away, and you're like giving it to
negativity, to chaos, to outrage, to manufactured bullshit, to clicks.
And even if it is a positive thing, it's like you are giving it away and you're not giving it to yourself first.
Yeah, but even the positive thing with social media, where it's like Instagram is more of a happy place than Twitter. Twitter just happens to be where I have a much bigger following.
I can't go on Twitter, man.
Yeah, no,
don't do
it. Don't do it.
So angry. Not everyone, but
don't do it. I just have twice the audience over there. But the Instagram, I just didn't follow any negative accounts. So all positive.
Yeah.
And then I'll see like, I love you and your partner so much. And I'll see you guys and I'll be like, yeah, fuck yeah. Click, 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 click. I'm never going to have that. You know what I mean?
Yes,
so like even even when you like clear your feed of all negative shit.
Yes.
And it's just positive stuff that you want to emulate. Like, look, I want to hang out with you guys, and I want to hang out with Tim and his wife, and I want to hang out because those are the relationships I want.
Right.
But also, if that's all I'm seeing, and I'm just like looking around, like, where's my?
Well, because you're giving your energy. Exactly, you're giving your energy away and not to yourself, so it can be really, really difficult to like be in both at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, be in both of those spaces.
So, but what you were saying with these little steps is there are people listening right now who esteemable acts are so good, who are so depressed. I was teaching a kid today. She was mounted and she was getting Americana, right? And you can do this with the arm triangle too.
Yeah.
Where it's like when you see someone who doesn't know how to get out of that move, they're thinking, I have to get this person off of me.
Yeah.
And then I have to pass their guard, and then I have to tap them out.
They're looking at the top of the mountain.
And their eyes are
they're
just
at the bottom.
Helpless. Where it's like, nope, you just need to bridge, make the move, and fucking get your arm back.
Yeah.
Then we worry about getting them out, right?
You need to take like 4 steps up the mountain. Stop looking at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Like you need to take the next 4 steps.
Yeah. Like you'll see people getting arm triangled by a big dude and they'll be like, ugh, and like try to get their like just a full sweep. And they'll be like, ugh, where it's like, if you spent just half that energy just to bridge and just get your fucking arm back, like that's what you need to do.
You're trying to summit Mount Everest in 1 second. Take 1 step, dude.
Like, right. Yeah. Talk to the Sherpa. Yes. And so with this, it's like when you feel so overwhelmed and so depressed, I'm never going to get a girl. I'm never going to be in my dream career. How about we get to the gym?
Right.
You know, like, why don't we do that first? Right. And then you go to the gym and you go.
Then the momentum starts. Right. Then the momentum
But
comes.
so many times this is the other thing I talk about a lot. We make lists where when I was hurt this morning and like kind of bumming out about some stuff, if I was just like, fuck, man, I gotta do that fucking trauma course and it's like so long and I'm not gonna get a break and I'm hurt. Oh shit, I told Kendall I was gonna do that fucking podcast. Now I'm like, before I've even done it, instead, what's right in front of me?
Can I get dressed?
Kill it. Yeah.
Can I get dressed?
Which, by the way, painfully is the answer.
Sometimes it really is that minimal for me though too. Like I'm someone who I like to consider myself someone with a big life, who chases big dreams, who tries to be disciplined, who tries to always be expanding and be grounded. But even then, it's like, Kendall, can you just like wash your face? Like, can you wash your face and get dressed? And then once we're there and you feel like 5% better, then let's get to the next thing.
If it is if it's just not fucking storming out.
Yeah.
If I can get myself to go for a 10-minute walk and I listen to music, I don't just feel better. I feel on top of the fucking world. Now I'm not looking at my phone. I'm either like, sometimes I go outside and I feel like I'm on drugs. Because when you don't have your phone, we're so used to our phone that when you just like go outside and you like hear the birds, you're like, that's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you look at the sky and you're like, what the fuck is that shit? That's fucking crazy. And then you like think about like Earth and you look at the trees and you're like, this is bananas. This is all bananas. And it's so beautiful and it's so crazy. And I'm just like, but I'm fucking mad because I saw that this dude on Instagram, like
my girl's picture.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's so crazy.
Yeah.
And that really puts it in perspective. Or I'll just put on like the cheesiest music ever and just like,
or input, man, is so huge. Like I'm really, really big on constantly flooding yourself with stuff you want to be more like. Like it's the people that you're surrounding yourself with, but it's also like podcasts, just like you said, your Instagram feed, music. This is something that I would have hated myself before because I sound like such a little hippie right now. But I actually started learning a lot more about neuroscience and like burning pathways into your brain and things like this. And I changed some of the music I listened to because I was listening to like so much of this stuff that was either like really like it's music that I love, but it's really sad or really aggressive or like some of this rap. Like I love that music, but I started being a little more mindful of like, what am I wiring myself to notice all day?
Dude, Kendall, I haven't said this publicly.
Oh no.
I have.
Don't tell me you stopped listening to Taylor Swift.
No, I always listen to her. She's our queen. And she just redid one of her songs with Bleachers, and I love Bleachers. I have a whole bit. I may have even recorded in Australia. I have a whole bit that I used to make fun of like Christian rock or whatever, but like worship songs, like good worship songs. I have been listening to it so much.
Wow.
And you feel like a crazy person because you're right. When you're listening to sad songs, like, you know, the melody's good and you're like, whatever.
It's great music.
When you're listening to like fucking just like worship songs where I'm just like, God is great. Like, and I'm driving it and I feel like a psychopath.
Right. It changes your state.
Well, and something I admitted on my podcast, and for the guys listening, again, this is going to sound so stupid. When I ironically watched that romantic comedy on Netflix, the Christmas one, I actually did get depressed.
Yeah.
But there was part of me that was like, oh, there's another one that looks good and cute.
That's self-indulgent.
And I was going to keep doing that.
Yeah. It's very self-indulgent.
I went home the next day and I bought John Wick and I watched that. And like, you can't say it doesn't affect your brain. If you don't think movies affect your brain, go see The Fast and the Furious in a movie theater and then see the parking lot afterwards when like Toyota Corollas are trying to like fucking spin out and do donuts. Where it's like, I'm not going to go avenge a dog and start shooting people, but I'm sure as fuck going to go to the range. I'm definitely going to go to Jiu Jitsu, and I'm going to feel like I'm going to walk tall.
It's input. It's just like when you have conversations with people in your life, like you take on some of what they're saying. Like it doesn't mean that you're not in control and you can't filter. But man, I was like listening. Actually, Sewell and I were listening to music today while we were working, and this song came on, and I have like these like meditation playlists, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad that I didn't drink coffee I feel like I just drank coffee. Like I'm having a transformational experience."
Yes.
And this song had no lyrics.
Right.
This is just the sound of the music.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think it's important. Like, I don't personally listen to worship. Actually, like, I like some of it, but I don't listen to it.
I'm going to send you some songs.
Please do. And there's a lot of people on here that probably don't listen to it, but it's not the worship music that is the thing. It's like, what can I find that makes me feel alive?
Yeah. And even like, there's like secular music. Like, I think I probably know the type of music you guys are like Explosions in the Sky or Sigur Rós or just like these like big orchestral kind of like build-ups, and like it's very like no Elliott Smith sad minor chords, like very just like positive and like build, bam. Like, yeah, man. I mean, that shit does set your mood. And like movies, I literally just figured that out now at like 40, because you think, oh, I want to cheer up, I'm gonna watch a rom-com, and it's like, oh, actually, isn't that just gonna make you like really want to meet a girlfriend in an unhealthy way? Like those are very toxic relationships.
And get like weirdly obsessed in 2 days.
Yeah, and like, oh boy, actually.
let's talk about that. Well, man, you know, it's funny. This is such a great lead, and I wanted to ask you and give you some space to talk about all the recent changes in your life. I know that you recently got really involved with church. You're working, you're teaching at Tim Kennedy's school.
Yeah.
You are, what else? I wrote all this stuff down that you're doing that's super exciting. Like, shooting. You're shooting now. You're working with Sheepdog. Like, tell me about the transformation that you've been having, and not really like, oh, okay, I was fucked up and now I'm fixed.
Yeah.
But like, what are you finding important on a day-to-day basis with these relationships?
Great question. So I was fucked up and then I was fixed.
That should be the name of my podcast.
Yeah.
That's gonna Jamie Kilstein. I was fucked up and now I'm fixed. That'll get some clicks.
That would get some clicks. You know, it's kind of what you were talking about, where it's like, surround yourself with people you want to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my problem, one of my many problems before, but just in that vein, was that I always surrounded myself with artists that I wanted to be like, And this is the first time in my life I'm like, Tim's a badass.
Do you mean, sorry to interrupt you, Jamie, but I want to get clear on this. Do you mean when I saw this comedian, I want to be like him, or I want his career, like, because he's successful?
I want his career because he's successful, but then you end up being like them in every way.
That's why I wanted to clarify, because I know you've had some issues with like, oh, I don't actually want to be like that.
Yeah, where I'm like, and look,
it's kind of jiu-jitsu superstars, same thing.
And it's all personal responsibility shit, but it's like when I was around comics, I was like, all right, I guess we should be drinking, and like, okay, like, yeah, we should hook up, and you know, I'll do this like random hookup, and then even if it doesn't go well, it's like, oh, I can talk about it on stage, and you know, you go to
do it for the bit,
and you go to an average like comedy show, myself included. It's like people who are just like, I mean, talk about the input you're getting, right?
Where
it's just like bragging about, you know,
what are you making your normal?
Yeah. And like,
what are you deciding is normal?
And comics are like, yeah, you know, a lot of times it's like you're shitting on, like, hear so many homeless jokes. I hear, you know, like, I don't want to make it political, but like,
but all those,
yeah. And
like my whole life revolves around being anti-Trump or anti-Biden and making people laugh.
That's it.
Or racist or like whatever.
And I'll make it about myself too, where it's like, one, all that positive affirmation Joe Dispenza stuff. Yeah. How is that happening when your best bits are about you hating yourself and 500 people a night are going, yay,
and they love
that's it. That's so good.
Please keep being depressed.
Keep talking about being dumb.
You're way better when you're fucked up.
That's it. No, but
when you're unhappy, you're way better.
But you tell yourself. So this is where it gets really dangerous. You start to get healthy. You get into a normal relationship. You quit drinking. You start meditating. You go, well, I guess I'm not funny. Because that's the whole thing. And then you show up to the comedy club. And a lot of times you're like, hey, I'm trying to, you know, quit drinking. And they're like, you gay. Right. You know, and you're just like, that's not supportive. Not funny. No, it's not funny. It's not supportive. Yeah. And, you know, there are a lot of, I mean, Rogan's been really good about like talking about health. And obviously, you know, that has had a ripple effect in the comedy community. But for the most part, and again, this is a me thing. This is no judgment. This is like, I don't like that I start to do that. And that I'm not strong enough to...
if you're in the center of that, you're going to start to...
I just want to fit in. Right. I just want people to like me.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I remember I interviewed Tim and we talked about masculinity and we talked about past shame and affairs and we talked about God and we talked about all this stuff. And afterwards I was like, hey man, I just want to be around you more.
Yeah.
Like, because we really hit it off. And he was like, you're a good man. And I was like, well, that's great because I'm going to start driving 40 minutes every day to come train with you guys. And then the more I hang out with Tim, it's like, turns out his circle is just like him. And then you become friends with those people. And
what would you say, Jamie? This is a really hitting home for, I think, a lot of people and me too. If somebody's listening and they're like, okay, I see these people on Instagram or TV or on shows and I really I admire them and want to be like that, but I just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
How do you do that when you're not meeting your heroes, so to speak?
Podcasts.
Like if
I'm
the input listening.
Yeah. If I'm listening to, and again, Bert Kreischer's a great friend of mine. I love him. He's lovely. He has a lovely family. Like he's great. He's a partier, but like he's doing it. He's pulling it off. And the last time I saw him, he was shirtless in a parking lot doing push-ups. And I was like, everyone needs to know you are exactly who you say you are. But like I listen to Bert's podcast and they're talking about party stories and I just go, all right, that's what I got to do. Yeah. I listen to Jocko.
Your day's gonna be a little different.
I'm waking up at fucking 5:30.
Yeah.
I'm waking up at 5:30.
Yeah.
If I feel like, man, these last couple of days I've been thinking about this girl and like I've been praying, but I didn't feel that same kind of like God connection. Listen to sermons. And I'm just listening to my podcast. And even if I'm like half paying attention, you just need like one phrase. One, you know, you're getting ready for a tournament, you know, maybe you're watching, you know, the Mendes brothers highlights or fucking Marcelo.
Things have a ripple effect, right? And I think it's important to mention that things are compounding. This is not linear. So you have one thing that changes one other thing that changes one other thing. Now all of a sudden, man, your whole week was totally different.
Yeah. Do you remember there was that one back in the day, there was a Mendes brother highlight where they went to like some like, I think it was the Hickson Gracie Cup in like Korea or some shit.
Okay.
And it was just this highlight of like them through the tournament.
I don't think I've seen this.
Ripping. But like it looked like they were playing with every black belt.
Wow.
Like just like making shit up, like not like it.
Just having fun.
It looked like a video game, just having fun. But it was a competition. And I was either a blue belt or a new purple belt at Marcelo's. I think I was a blue belt. So it was pretty old. Maybe new purple belt.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know half the shit they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I would watch it before class. And I was just doing it.
Yeah.
When I watch an instruction,
like osmosis.
Yes, a lot of times when I watch instructionals, I have a hard time focusing. That's on me. Again, I was gonna say. I was born in the 80s, where like I have so many undiagnosed things. Where like in the 80s, days when you're slow, and you're like, all right, but it's just like there's a million things.
Yeah.
And so I would just watch it, and that osmosis, like it would take over, and that's just how I would play.
Right.
So very much with mental health, like, and I hope it doesn't sound shitty where it's like, I'm really blessed and I've been through a lot of shit. I've been through a lot of shit to meet Tim Kennedy, you guys. And, but then also like sometimes people who, I don't know if that's
don't meet your heroes. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, no, that, but like they told a story today about someone who got hired who wasn't anybody.
Right.
Went through some shit, proved herself. Like, I just don't know if the story's public. And then they were like, yo, we want you around.
Right.
So maybe, by the way, you do meet one of your heroes and you're listening, whether it's at like a comedy show or whatever, or you hit them up on Instagram because they're looking for a videographer and you're like, hey man, I've been working really hard and here's my reel and I have this. And then you do actually get to be around that person. But if not, it's 1,000% what you're reading, what you're listening to. And then having nothing to do with them, are you acting like your heroes? Are you honoring them?
So good.
Right? So like if
what are you attracting? Like what kind of magnet are you being?
Yep, like the times that I walk by trash and I go, that's gross. I'm not going to pick it up. And then I just kind of like think about like, what if I saw like trash outside a sheepdog, or what would Tim do? Or like, what would Jesus do? Right. Yeah. And then I just like,
Joe Dispenza says, what would a master do right now? Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
Like what? Just being in a curious way, like kind of in a cute, like in a funny way, like what would a master do right now?
Yep.
I don't know. Let me try that out for size.
Right before I came here, today's like the first cold day in a while in Austin, and I went to get food. And there were fire pits. And I just walked out with my food and there was an empty fire pit. And I was like, great. And like, I was here and the fire pit was there. And I saw a woman here and she was like beelining it. And I made eye contact and I just go, come on. And so her and her husband came here. And then I went and I ate in the cold and I'm watching her. And this Muslim couple with an infant in a stroller roll up. And they go, hey, we don't want to interrupt you guys, but like the baby's cold. Can we just stand there? And she looked like she wanted to say no. And then she just goes, yeah, of course, you take that side. And then they move to this side or whatever. I'm not saying that was because of me.
Right.
But maybe.
Yeah.
You know, and like.
Well, and it's better to err on that side of things. Like maybe if I am making a positive.
Yeah, instead of being like, haha. And then suddenly she feels like it's dog eat dog when she gets to the table. And then this little baby comes up and she's like, no, we're
this. The thing is, you never know the positive ripple effects you're going to have. So the more chances you take to maybe make that happen, the higher percentage of the time you're going to get it.
Yeah. I mean, I had this experience the other day where I was handing out sandwiches and I handed it out to this one houseless guy and we were right by Pete Terry's burger place. And he takes the sandwich, but he goes, man, I really want a burger. And it, it's like half a block away. And I was like, oh, sorry, man. Like I don't have time or whatever.
Right.
And then I actually did kind of think about Jesus because he didn't just give food to feel good about himself to then say on Kendall's podcast.
Right.
He befriended them. And I was like, fucking man, let's go get a burger. And he goes, yeah. And he, this guy was like so much bigger than me. And he just like lit up and I go, yeah, let's go.
Wow.
So we go to get a burger. And we go in Pete Terry's and I go, order whatever you want. And he's like, can I get like the meal? And I was like, of course, dude. Gets the meal, whatever. So sometimes I sit and talk with them. Sometimes if they're not engaging too much with me, I don't want to force it to be like, hey, now time for you to
talk to me so I can do my good deed.
Humor the white influencer. Yeah. So I go to leave. And as I'm walking away, I go, oh shit. Hey man, what's your name? And he goes, it's Jerome. And I go, really nice to meet you, man. And as I turned, this other white guy like grabbed my hand and just goes, and I thought he knew me.
Yeah, yeah.
And he just goes, you're a good man.
Oh.
And now I say that not because I'm a good man. I say that because
right.
that dude's going to do the same fucking thing.
Right.
There is no fucking way
that
that
didn't
guy
have a positive impact.
is not going to do it. And by the way, it wasn't about the like, here's some money, here's something. It was specifically when I asked his name and I saw humanity and he saw that. And so you all listening, like you get to do that. Like Tim talks about whenever, you know, all of his trainers talk about it, like we're force multipliers. You are a force multiplier.
Yeah.
You're teaching, you know, a woman who never heard of jujitsu, and she's teaching it to her kids, or she's telling her friends. I love the
similar word, change agent. Like you're a change agent. Like you can't see all the ripple effects, but everybody has the power to be a change agent in their lives.
And by the way, for people struggling and for people who are like, where do I find this influence? It might just be you.
Yeah.
You might just have to be fucking depressed like I am and start making peanut butter sandwiches. And because when you put yourself, even when you feel like you have nothing and you put yourself in service, suddenly it happens.
There's no love in my experience like the love I feel from really giving.
That's it.
Like really. And that stretches in so many different directions. Like, of course, in your personal relationships, intimate relationships, strangers, like you said, houseless people.
How many times have you been teaching and you're so ready to get off the mat?
Yeah.
And someone just goes, hey, I'm just like having trouble with the body lock pass. And you're not into it at first.
Yeah.
And then you're like watching them light up and get it. And you see like, you just made their fucking day. And then you walk off and you're like, yep, that was right. That was the right thing to do.
And I think it's worth saying that it's normal, at least for me, like it doesn't feel like that 100% of the time. Like I'm human. Like there are times where I'm like, okay, now I'm really glad that's over because I'm so tired.
Well, because again, you're not doing it for you. You're doing it for them.
Exactly. Like, and that's okay because man, I feel like I used to listen to people talk about these kinds of things and I'm like, I don't know if I'm really like meant to be like that because I don't feel like that 100% of the time. But it goes back to the discipline of doing esteemable acts. It's like, no, but I decided that this was who I was going to be.
By the way, that's the test. That's either what the fuck your ego or dark shit like that they want you to think that you don't belong there, because there were so many times. I mean, the first time I did the sandwich thing, like first it was raining, then the first two were like clearly just like literally just like drug addicts who go, no, I don't want food, I want drugs. And I was just like, why am I here? All of these things just telling me like, just get out, dude. Like you're not good enough for this. I remember I showed up the first guy. I get out of the car. I see a guy right away, and he's just like this older dude. He's drinking a beer. This older white guy. He's leaning against the wall. And I go, hey, buddy, you want a sandwich? And I was fucking nervous.
Yeah.
And I was like, not that I was going to get attacked or something. I was
uncomfortable.
I was like, is this stupid?
Yeah.
And I go, hey, buddy, do you want a sandwich? And he goes, no, but that guy probably needs it. And I look across the street, and there was just a guy having a full-blown fucking meltdown. And
my God.
And I was like, yeah,
right on.
I'd rather start with you, like in my head. But then I was like, fuck, I got to do it. And same deal, I go to walk away, and he goes, it's an honorable thing you're doing. And I go, okay. And so I walk up to this guy having, again, just like speaking in total meltdown. And I go, hey, man, I don't know if you're going to be hungry later. Like, you're probably going to be pretty exhausted from this meltdown. I'm just going to leave this here so you can recharge for the next one. And like, I literally like almost went home. And there's been an experience every time I've gone. There's been at least one experience like that. But fucking hell, the good ones, the people I've met, the names I know, the stories I know, the laughs I've shared, like all worth it. And again, it doesn't have to be something so dramatic. We often tell ourselves, I'll help people when I get my shit together.
Yeah.
But then
I think helping people helps you get your shit together.
That's how, it does. And because if not, it's like, well, now I'm not helping anyone and I don't have my shit together because I'm just sitting around watching fucking rom-coms on Netflix.
And honestly, I think it's really self-indulgent to sit in that. Like, so one of my favorite phrases that really helped me, especially with my eating disorder or disorder recovery, was self-loathing is still self-obsession. Oh. Like I am still, you know, the myth of Narcissus.
That hit me like a train.
Ooh, it's a good one, right?
A good one, yeah.
You know, have you heard the myth of Narcissus? Okay, I might get this wrong, but
that's okay.
It's basically,
you're a podcast host. You just get to say stuff with blind confidence, and people are like, "Got it."
I'm gonna get so much wrong, but I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
the story's good anyway. Do it for the story.
Let's go.
No, so Narcissus is the guy or the god. I forget how they describe it, but he looks into, I think it's a pond or a river, and he sees his reflection for the first time. This is before mirrors, and so he gets so like enamored with himself and how beautiful he is. He keeps looking and looking and looking and looking. He falls and drowns.
Yeah.
So if you're looking in the mirror at how ugly you are, same exact thing. Same exact thing. And you can't be of service to anybody when you're self-indulgent, that self-loathing or self-obsessed. And honestly, it's dangerous in either direction.
And again, little steps. Just like we were talking about, like making the bed and stuff. When you show up to Jiu Jitsu and the guy at the front desk goes, "How you doing, man?" Do you say good or do you go, "I don't know"?
I'm so glad you said that, because I was literally thinking, man, you don't have to, if you don't feel comfortable, you're not ready to go to feed the homeless or whatever it is that looking, like when I order my coffee, it's like, "How are you?" Man, I'm having a great day. Like looking you in the eyes, like, "How are you?"
So huge.
What's your name? Like, obviously, if it's an inconvenient time and they just want me to hurry up, okay, whatever.
Yeah, totally.
But doing those small things, man, I have so
holding
many
the door
times
for people, not being on your phone, which, by the way, situational awareness, shouldn't be on your phone anyway.
People makes my day all the time doing stuff like that. It feels so good.
Yeah.
Well, we're the same. We're all the same.
Yes. And when you're giving authentically, when people do it to you, you even notice harder. Like it makes me, like, someone held the door for me today and I was just like, "Brother, thank you so much." And like, I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, I'd always say thank you. But it lit me up because I'm like, we're all just trying to fucking do good. Right.
And I think sometimes hearing this stuff, it sounds a little bit douchebaggy, because if I like people listening, like it can be like, "Oh man, okay, yeah, whatever." Like maybe it depends on the frame of mind you're in. Sometimes it doesn't.
No, I always try. That's why I always tell the negative stuff of like, yes, I'm feeding the homeless, but also I got scared 3 times and I almost ran away and I injured myself at church. And like, I'm an idiot,
but I did it anyway. But I did it anyway.
Yeah, we're all fuck ups. Yeah. Man.
So when you're thinking about building these, putting yourselves like, okay, you're hanging out. I know we keep mentioning Tim, but you're hanging out with these other people. Sure. You're really immersed in your church community. You're doing your firearms training. You have all these things. You've been.
I never thought a church community would rule. By the way, I was just like, pink hair Jamie. I was just like, well, because also. Or I just want to say this because I know like atheists and secular people, as I was one for up until like 6 months ago, rightfully get super like, "Oh, I don't want to fucking hear about this shit." Organized religion is so bad that they made God look bad. You know what I mean? Like they fucked up so bad that it's like, how do you ruin God? They're like, "We got this." And so it was when I started, I ignored most religious people. Cause again, just like Twitter, just like politics, the people who are the loudest are often the biggest assholes.
What's the bell curve, right?
Yes. Whereas like most people are normal and willing to have a conversation and disagree and be cool and whatever. Right. But when I started reading about like Jesus as Jesus, and I was like, "Oh, he also hated religion." And I was like, that guy's cool. And then I didn't even think about religion. I was like, well, I want a role model like we were talking about. And if this is saying help people and love people,
the concepts, the values,
I'm in. Like what
in the community of people who feel like they're on the same page with those.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that out there. That's just my little disclaimer.
I love it. And I appreciate that too, because it allows people to connect. Like I think when people do that, it leaves space for belonging or connection.
Well, we're so tribalized, right? That you're listening to this podcast interview and people, you'll be like, "Oh, this guy's awesome." And he's like, "Yeah, man, that's why I'm a Republican." They're like, "Fuck you, buddy." Yeah. And then they turn it off. Yeah. And same with like, or I'm Christian or I'm Buddhist or whatever. I'm a geek person. I'd be like, "Get out of here." Yeah. But like, and I think we all need to get past that, because one of the most enlightening things that's ever happened to me, because I used to be so tribalistic, is realizing that the people who have been there for me the most and the people who I love the most right now are people that I would have never talked to 10 years ago. And that's a biggie. And that'll do a lot.
That really helps keep us in reality and humility of like, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
And also, isn't that beautiful? Like, instead of being like, oh fuck, like it's more like, oh, you mean these people that I thought were bad are actually really good?
Right.
Doesn't that actually make the world a better place?
It's
and we should
exciting.
celebrate that instead of being like, oh, you hang out with conservatives now.
So much
like,
separation, and I understand the separation in opinions, but the separation in humanity is really confusing, or not confusing, but it's really frustrating because we all are made of the same stuff. Community is really the most important thing in the world.
Like, dude, that's it. Yeah. But look, this has to do with what we were talking about before about doing the work on yourself, because I could never see past that because I hated myself and I wasn't confident in myself. So if this tribe was telling me I'm good, then I'll do whatever it takes to make that tribe happy. And that's what I did. And it fucking imploded and it was bad. And now it's like, well, I'm so confident in myself that I can be friends with this liberal here and this conservative here and go shooting with this guy here and fucking still have this liberal cause here and have this conservative thing here.
With these guys and
it rules.
And if people are, so what I'm hearing you say is like, there's so much power in this community, but there's also so much power in your self-assuredness and trying to know who you are and doing what's best for yourself. Because, for example, say you're hanging out and someone in your community does something that's like for what you value really fucked up. Right? It's like, well, now do I do what they say because I respect this person or I did before? So when someone is listening to this thinking like, man, I want to build this. I remember like 5 or 6 years ago thinking like these people have, and I was young, 18, 19. Man, these people have these tribes that are like so strong and they like, and I was like, man, I have good friends, but I don't know if I have that. Like, that's what I
never
want.
had a tribe till this.
Right. So when your people are thinking like, okay, well, I'm not going to meet some quote unquote famous person.
Right.
How do I find this in my immediate community outside of just like listening to input? Because I know that can be really powerful. What does it take as far as living and maybe in your authenticity and your values?
No, it's a great question. I think, I think values is kind of the answer.
Maybe deciding them. Like, asking that question.
Yeah. So
writing it down.
Figuring out like, what are you looking for? Right? Like, what are you looking for? And if you're looking to get tougher, right? Maybe it's a Jiu Jitsu gym.
Right.
If you're looking, for a spiritual community, it's probably a church, right? Maybe it's a Buddhist temple. Like that's where I started. I started going, I was like exploring with like Buddhism. Which by the way, far fucking easier. Where I'm like, before I believed in Jesus, I was like, the devil wasn't pulling my groin during Duck Duck Goose. Buddhism, I just had to sit still. It was fucking great. Just like cute little Buddha under a tree. Oh, to go back to that. But like, so that it's what you're, and by the way, the first couple times I went to church, I had friends, but I was like, I asked them if I could sit alone. I go, I don't want to feel weird.
So was that because you wanted to know you were deciding for yourself and not for them?
Yes, I want to know I was deciding for myself and I wanted to like try to get the spirituality. Whereas like when I was like next to my friend and like the song came on, I'm like, oh fuck, do I have to put my hand in the air? I don't want to do that. And like, do I do this? Or like, what are they doing? Whereas like I sit by myself and I'm just like tuned in,
Man, that's so funny. I just want to confirm that so heavy for you because I was at this dispenser retreat with my mom. I love my mom. We're so freaking tight, so close. But some of the meditations she skipped and I did or whatever, and those were easier for me to get into because I was like, I'm like next to my mom. Like I don't know if I want to totally get into this,
Well, and I realized
like, that's so normal.
One of the things I've been doing is I love now going to movies by myself, which I never would have done. But going to a movie by myself, I realized that even during relationships, I was codependent. Where half the time I was just like, "Baby, you like this, right?
Yeah,
we can leave if we can leave if you want to."
Through what you think their experience is.
And so.
How heavy is that? That's heavy to carry.
Well, what I just realized too, and this confirms another piece of advice you gave, because I've never talked that out about church before. What does that prove? I had to get comfortable by myself before reaching out to the community. I remember someone at my church told me, hey man, I'm glad you're meeting people here, but remember, you're here for God. Not in the sense that he said, don't be social, because he said, people will still let you down. So what he meant by that is, if I just throw myself in, I'm going to church because I want friends.
Yeah.
And I want friends who are nice and want to feed poor people.
Yeah.
And then one of those friends gossips about me. Or one of those friends goes, fuck Jamie or whatever. Now I go, oh, fuck church.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're seeing it through the filter exactly the same as the girl in the movie.
So I had to plant my flag and be like, I want to be here for me. And then when I even tried volunteering at my church. Here's a shitty story about me. I tried volunteering at my church, and after the Duck Duck Goose thing, I go, I can't volunteer.
Yeah.
I go, and then even my pastor goes, yeah, dude, most people wait a lot longer to volunteer. Like you can take it easy.
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah.
okay, cool.
There's the addict personality coming into play.
That was it.
All or nothing.
Where I was like, I have to feed everyone. I tried to save like a dog like last week.
Jesus now.
That was it. Yeah, literally.
Or else I'm not good enough at this.
That was it. I was like, I'm coming for you, bud. I'm coming for your records, Big J. So, but yeah, it was being confident in myself and then finding community. So to just double down on my answer to your original question, because tangents, go to the places that have people that you want to be like. If you're just going to bars, like I realized that I was going on dates to bars, even though I don't really want to be in a drinking relationship.
Right. That's so huge.
How the fuck am I going to go to a bar and be like, bummer, she drinks. We're at a bar. You know what I mean? Like she wanted to go to a bar for the first date.
Man, like as an example, like I'm not single, but if I was or when I was, and if someone would ask like, oh, let's go out, blah, blah, like go on a date, like that's not a date that I'm going to say yes to because I don't want you to think.
Good for you. Yeah.
Like that's the kind of relation. Like,
but old me would have because I was just, dude. I mean, my confidence was to the point where anytime a pretty girl showed interest in me, I would like look around and be like, are you here for somebody else? You know? And then that's why I would just jump into the whatever you want, I'll be that. Because I don't want you to leave because I assume this is, like there's been a mix up at the factory. And then,
man, the truth in that's like really hard to swallow, I think. Your water is totally gone. Depleted. You want some kombucha?
How did fucking Jay not drink this water?
I don't know. Is going to refill you. Don't you worry.
Keep this in. Jay, just because you're young and naturally talented, drink water. Oh, he brought more water?
He brought a whole thing.
Well, never mind, Jay. Help me. Help me get ripped.
But man, so
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, Sula. You're so cute. So I think that it's important. Sometimes what helps pull me out of destructive behaviors where you can kind of go in two directions. Say, oh, this is really not good for me. This is self-sabotaging. I need to do something else. Sometimes that wasn't motivating enough for me because I wasn't going to do it for myself. Or maybe when I was...
I just gave his advice to someone yesterday.
When I was feeling objective and nice and I was meditating and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this nice thing for myself. Okay, but then as soon as I'm not feeling like that, I don't want to make that decision again. Yep. But if you think about how it affects the other person, like I know you were just thinking about this, but man, it's like, okay, but me morphing into somebody else for you is actually really fucked up because now I'm creating this false relationship that you think you're in and you're actually not in that relationship. And now I'm resentful for something that I created.
Yeah. My friend Eric Godzi came on the podcast and he was talking about how, so many times when we first start dating, we put out like our greatest hits, sort of false image, but we also do something where, I'll just say what I think you are, and I make that in my head, which is me ignoring all the red flags, which is what we were talking about. And I'm like, I can change that. We can be this, whatever. Then
I got it. It's fine.
I
can train a dog. How fucked up is that?
Yeah. I also can train a dog. So then you get 6 months in, and everyone knows that like feeling in your gut when the honeymoon period is over and there's the first fight and you're just like, are you a monster? And it's so scary. It's that like fight or flight moment. And essentially I'm getting mad at you for not being who I said you were
in my head,
which is my fault. Yeah. And you're getting mad at me for the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, that's another reason. It's like, just be authentic.
And it's the same with friends and community. Yeah. Like that's kind of what we were getting at coming back to the community.
Yes. I wanted to say something on that.
Yeah.
Here's what I would love to challenge you guys.
Ooh,
catch yourself. If you're the friend and you're just like, you think about your circle of friends, and I'm not saying this to be mean.
You kind of are, but it's okay.
But like, let's say.
I like when you're mean.
Everyone else is like, not like uggos, but like, let's say you're... Stay with me, everybody. If you're like the cool one and everyone's just like applauding you and you're still in your fucking home.
If you have cheerleaders,
if you have little cheerleaders, and you guys are like all like townies and you're going to the same fucking bar or whatever, are you hanging around with those friends because you like being... So when I was in Arizona during COVID,
it's like dating down.
It's dating down.
Why are you always dating down?
Because you feel fucking like a rock star.
Because you like to be a superstar?
Because you like to be a superstar. I mean, I had to catch myself. I lived in the mountains in Arizona during COVID and was crushing it. Every gym I went to, crushing it. Yeah. Every show, it was like I was like actually a celebrity there, you know. That's awesome. I lived in this kind of like retirement area, and all these like old widows loved me and would like because I just like play with their dogs and shit. And I was like, like the cost of living was so low, and I was like, I could be a king here. And then I was like,
yeah.
Where now I'm just like,
I gotta find some challenge.
Oh, I'm getting my ass kicked again. Like physically, like at a gym. I'm learning new skills. I'm around dudes who are like so good looking, it's borderline intimidating. And I have to like convince myself that I belong there because like I'm a kind person. I don't know.
Right. Well, it's like I gotta stop getting my ass kissed 24/7.
That's it. And it was before that. I mean, that was like, you know, that was before church. That was before mindfulness even. I was just like, I just gotta fucking step it up, dude. And so you should be around, because the opposite end to that is I'm around this person and this person has more money than me, and I'm just like, well, fuck him. He only has money because of this. And if I had this opportunity, I would.
Well, it's separateness again. It's it's like you're far away from me. You're different from me. I don't like that.
Yeah, or like, but it's projecting too. It's like, oh well, you know, he only gets these hot girls because like he's like 6'2". Guys, I didn't
self-preservation.
Yeah, I didn't know I was short until I got on Tinder, and
how tall are you?
5'7".
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
and what happened on Tinder?
All these fucking girls are like, if you're not 6 foot, swipe. And I was like, am I fucking short?
Oh
but
my God.
The reason that this girl I'm seeing now is like 5'10". But like the reason that I never thought about that, and I've dated really attractive women like recently, is because I didn't know I was short.
You didn't know the insult you were supposed to be feeling.
No.
You didn't know you were supposed to be feeling bad about that.
So now I'm like, I was super confident about the stuff I am good at.
Yeah.
Like I'm nice, I'm funny, I can fight, but all this stuff. And then it worked. Whereas now, like if a girl starts flirting on Instagram, I feel like I have to be like
a disclaimer.
Hey, I don't want you coming all the way here just to be disgusted by my tiny dwarfism. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh,
And now I'm like, so you don't want to be the person who, if you're around hot people, you're like, well, fuck him, or you're around rich, but you want to be, now if they're assholes, there are a lot of hot assholes, yes. But like, you want to be around people that, not that you're going to turn into a yes man. You don't want that, but you want to be people that you aspire to be more like. Chances are, if you hang out with people who have more money than you, maybe they got some tips on how to get you out of debt.
Right.
You know, maybe you watch the way they operate. Maybe you see that, oh shit, they're not stingy and he just tipped so big and I'm poor, and I've told myself like, I can't tip more than 20%. I'm poor. But like, you know, what'll happen if I just give? Right. You know how much shit I've been buying for people that I'm like, don't really have the money for. And it's just kind of coming back to me. Call it the universe. Dispenza would say you're attracting it to yourself. Right. Call it God, call it whatever. But I honestly just think it's just like, man, I'm just doing it because like, I definitely need it less than Cody, the vet in a wheelchair who lives on the street. And so like, what'll happen if I buy him a fucking jacket? I'll probably be fine.
Well, and it's interesting when you talk about like surround yourself. It's such a thing, like it's such a common topic that I love to hear about. It's like surround yourself with people that you want.
5 people you are.
Yeah, you're the average. Okay, but here's where I think people get kind of fucked up is when you hear that. When you hear that, there's two like veins of thought there. One is like sometimes people hear that and they're like, well, why are you trying to hang out with people you're just trying to get from? Like I actually made a video about this and someone commented on like, my friends' finances are none of my business. Why do I want to be around people make it like I shouldn't even be thinking about that? That's so selfish. Why am I trying to get from them? But really, it's like a value issue. It's like, why do I feel like I don't deserve to be around people I want to be like when I know I can bring them value in different ways? It's an exchange. It's a give and take.
And are you projecting because that's what you would be like in that friendship, right? Because you don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
I've known Tim for a long time. And the way we became friends is I said, hey, what can I do to help you?
Yeah. Leading with
even value. Though, by the way, you look at him as like, that guy doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
But I just go, hey, I would like to help you.
Right.
If I was just like, you know, give me this, come on my podcast. Even when I asked him to do the podcast, I was very specifically like, hey man, it's mental health. It's a different audience than yours. And I think you can really help people. And like, I have issues with masculinity and like, I kind of want to focus on that. And it helped a lot of people.
Yeah. But leading with value, I think, is such a great way to enter these kinds of relationships with the confidence of like, I don't need to feel like I'm trying to get anything from you. I want to give.
When I have people that I literally have never talked to, or I've had people that have ignored my last, DM or whatever, and suddenly they're like, hey, bro, got a book coming out. Can you get it to Joe Rogan? And I was like, are you out of your fucking mind? Which, by the way, a lot of these celebrities, a lot of these big people, I mean, I'm sure have it, where it's like, you do have to be suspect of like friendships, I mean, I do. Like a lot of people have tried to be my friends for shitty reasons. And like,
well, it's also like dating, Jamie. So when we think about dating,
we go all in right away. We ask no questions.
Look, I used to be the person that was like, I trust until you give me a reason not to.
Right.
Then I turned 25. No, I was kidding.
I'm a 40-year-old fucking man.
I had some other experiences where I was like, you know what? Here's the thing. It comes with self-esteem. I have very high self-esteem because I view myself as someone who has a lot of value to the people close in my life because I give a lot of love. I give a lot of myself. So I don't give that freely anymore without being able to trust the other person and know that my relationship is in good hands. And so you have to earn that kind of relationship, that depth.
And by the way, like, you don't have to like literally volunteer to do a task. You can literally just like, what a lot of rich people or successful people would love? Just a friend.
Yeah.
Just a friend who's not asking for shit all the time. Who's not asking for fucking to borrow money. Who's not asking for stuff like that. Just like show up and be funny if you're the funny guy.
Yeah.
Show up and be sweet if you're sweet. Play with their kids. You know what I mean? Like, introduce yourself to their fucking wife or girlfriend. I will.
Oh my God.
I will judge people
so hard.
One of the ways I base is if they don't introduce themselves to my girlfriend and they're just like, hey man, and they're already like in my face with like like meditated shit. I was just like, hey, there's a lady next to me. Like, you know what I mean?
And this is not human.
Yeah. So just like be polite. And then in these conversations, I'm even really careful around like the sheepdog dudes, like to make sure I'm not always just like asking for advice. Right. And they love teaching.
Yeah.
But like, man, we're talking about their kids. We're talking about shit like that. And then naturally we're talking about fighting or we're talking about manliness or whatever. And then I can be like, hey, what do you think of this?
Yeah.
And now it's just a conversation and it's cool.
Right.
Right. And then like, one of their guys was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing 5 minutes on stage. And I'm like, killer, dude. Let me help you with that.
Yeah.
So you always have something to, I would say if your immediate reaction when you hear something like that is to be defensive and reactionary, it's probably you don't feel like you belong there. And I think that everybody listening to this, we're all going through stuff. We're all trying to better ourselves. Again, that's my biggest goal in my life is to better myself. But also all of you listening, I promise you have more than you think because no one is meaner to you than you, right? Like there's that cliche advice where whenever I forget, I assume it's Brene Brown. Whenever it sounds like a white lady, I'm like, it's Brene Brown.
I love her.
Or the Eat, Pray, Love lady.
She's so good.
But they were like, would you talk to anyone you love the way you talk to yourself? And I was like,
what would your friend do to you if you talk to them?
Call the police.
Yeah.
I would go to jail. I am so mean to myself. And so I said this on my show the other day. The times you feel like just lashing out at someone, ask yourself why.
I love that. It's like my favorite question to ask myself is this a me thing?
Yeah.
And then and bouncing that off of people too, like that I trust, not people that I think might try to hurt my feelings, but people that I trust who've known me for a long time, who we have that kind of relationship, that kind of conversation on the regular. It's like, hey, let me run this by you. Is this a me thing? I don't need your validation. And I have people in my life that like, I know that like, I trust them not to just feed me what they think I want to hear. Really, really tell me, is this a me thing? Like, help me ride this out.
I also train at 10th Planet and there's this like group of influencers who come in for like sort of like a semi-private class.
Okay.
And I remember, you show up to just an average kickbox, not a pro class, but you show up to like an average kickboxing class or an average jiu-jitsu. It's different shapes and sizes and, ages and stuff like that. I walk into the gym one day and I was just like, just saw these like sweaty, successful. None of them are wearing shirts.
Oh
They
my
all have
gosh,
like
like a
packs.
commercial.
Yeah, and I was just like, who are these fucking idiots? And just
I love this
immediately,
catch.
and they're fucking, and they're not bringing their hands back, or they're swinging like assholes. I'm like, these fucking dorky influencers, whatever. And then I had to stop.
Is this a me thing?
Hey man, is this because they're fucking hot?
Yeah.
Because I immediately wanted to go up and be like, hey, I didn't know we could take our shirts off. Like it'd just be like, it's just
your form fucking sucks.
Yeah, just
you need some help? I can help
you. You want to spar?
And
just be a dick bag. And I'm like, no, man, I probably kind of want 100,000 followers on Instagram. I would certainly love abs. And then do I have like an insulin issue? Like and so it was just straight jealousy. And not only that, but they're actually pursuing something I love. And so you have these guys that could just be fucking, and look, maybe they're doing it for the gram.
Who knows?
Just to be like, I'm a boxer now.
It's also none of my business.
None of my fucking business. None of my business. Dude. None of my fucking business. And where do I want to
live? That is such a big concept. Like, where do I want to live? What energy do I want to be in? For me personally, my number one goal above anything else in the entire world is to live in the energy of love. Dude, as often as I can.
That's for me. It's the Jesus thing, where it's like, how do I show love to absolutely everybody,
including myself? Right? Like if I'm embodying what the energy of love means to me and I'm connecting with that on a daily basis, then do I really want to be in jealousy? Do I really want to be in judgment? And then it's important to be like, yo, how often do I slip from grace with that? Like how often do I catch myself like judging somebody, or like literally, man, Sula and I will be talking and I'm like trying to do I'm like, oh, that fucking bitch, or like this stupid thing. And then I'm like, Sula, okay, let me get back into because when I'm in that narrative, guess what I'm doing? I'm keeping it alive. I'm making it bigger. Now I'm part of the problem. Can I get out of that and back into love?
Yeah. And everything.
Like, how long am I going to stay here?
Right.
Like, and because that's the choice.
Everything is reps. Like, just to bring it back to Jiu Jitsu for your audience, for the dumb guys being like, I don't get this girl stuff. It's reps, you guys. It's getting out of side control. It's like,
this is man stuff. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I don't want to be around men who can't talk about this kind of stuff. Men, women, undefined, like, whatever. Like human beings who can't talk about like self-reflection. That's dangerous. That's a problem.
Red flag.
That's a red flag.
I just had Kendall's also helping me pull it back a little bit in my personal life. But like everyone, I know there are people, because they've written into my show or they've DM'd me or whatever, who are like, I don't have anything, dude.
Right.
And it's like,
or they're just unfamiliar with the language too.
But again, it's reps.
They haven't heard it a lot.
It's just reps. It's just reps. And then I forgot your phrase, but it was so beautiful about like the little victories, you know?
Esteemable. How do I gain self-esteem, or how do I grow my self-esteem? By doing esteemable acts.
It's the same thing.
Those are small.
Yeah. So like
they can be tiny little things.
If you guys
drink a glass of water.
The first time I bought a self-help book, it was over COVID. It was a Tony Robbins book. It was about positive thinking. And I swear to God, I must have blacked out, because all I remember is reading it and then pacing my apartment going, just think positive, you fucking piece of shit.
Oh my God.
And I guess I was trying to think positive and I couldn't. And then I got mad at myself for not thinking positive. And then I was like, well, I'm just the most broken. Yeah. Like, how many times does that happen to us? We've read one self-help book, or we've listened to one fucking David Goggins interview, and we go, that's it. I figured it out. And then we fuck up. We don't run the next day and we go, fuck all that. Yeah. And then we just like completely derail on everything. And that's where I say it's reps. And that also means leading with love. There are so many times my pastor has talked about driving back from church and getting cut off and being like road ragey, and then just being like, bring it back, buddy. Yeah. You know, we all do it.
How often can I bring myself back, and how much faster does my response time get? Right.
That's it.
It's just getting
better. And that's your victory.
Yeah.
Like I said that again when I say that all the time when I teach. It's like, if a black belt, you know, got you in 8 arm bars, your goal probably isn't to tap out that black belt. Your goal is to get tapped out with 7 arm bars. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's these little tangible things. I mean, I remember the first time I got like halfway past a thigh on Marcelo Garcia when I was a white belt, and I was just like, I did it, baby. Yes, like we're doing it, you know? Yes. And I was so excited. Yeah. That's the only way I survived there.
Right, you know? Right. It really, man, I think that like another one of my favorite quotes or concepts is the time is going to pass anyway. Like if I'm looking at the amount of,
put it, yeah.
right? Like the amount of time that it's going to take to be X, Y, or Z. It's like, okay, but in 2 years or in a month or in a week or in 6 months, like I'm still going to be looking at the calendar. It's going to be this time and I'm going to look back at myself and I'm going to see the time pass. And what do I want to say that I've done in that time?
What I was going to say with all those like shitty feelings, the jealousy that you were talking about, the projecting, the gossiping, all that stuff. Also asking yourself, like, when has this ever worked for me? Like, what has this ever made things better?
Yeah.
Like, if you're just like
I've already been trying it my way. Like, what if I tried something different? Because I've been doing my way for a long time.
For a long time. And there are times where you do it your way. Again, for me, I didn't understand this concept until like God, because I've never been good at surrendering. Because when you're doing it your way and you're like, I'm just going to have an affair. Like, okay, that's bad, right? But oftentimes you're going, like I caught myself the other day being like, you know, my comedy career was going fucking great in Austin before I started like kind of doing all this like churchy stuff. And like, I was opening for Duncan Trussell. I was doing like sold out shows.
Before I joined a cult.
Like, and it was so fun. And I really want to focus. I'm focusing the most on the podcast, on advice not taken, and doing online stuff, and just talking more about mental health. And there was part of me that I was like, I got offered a show, and I was like, I can just fucking. That's how I'm gonna get the podcast big. And then once the podcast gets big, I'll stop doing the stand up. And my church buddy was like, but isn't that what you always do? And so the reason I said that is because that's an example of it's. A lot of times what we always do doesn't sound negative. It's not like, oh, well, I always do coke and cheat on my wife. Yeah. It's like, well, we know that's bad.
Yeah.
But like, oh, you know what? We always get back together.
Yeah.
Whether it's a toxic relationship or like, I've always kind of worked a job that I don't like, but like, that's
cool. It's not that big of a deal. It's familiar.
Yeah.
It's familiarity.
And so it doesn't need to seem like evil.
Right.
But if it's the same thing and it's getting the same shitty results, or if you're in a relationship and you're like, yeah, I've just always been jealous. It's like, yeah, when has that been fun?
Right,
or
right.
Like, maybe we should fix that.
Yeah,
because that sounds awful.
And the curiosity of like, maybe there is a different way, or maybe the thing is, something that has saved me through so many big transitions of my life that felt scary, and it's easy to look back and talk about big transitions after it goes well, but when you're in it and there's no guarantee, that's terrifying, right? So when you're in it, something that has always really saved me is I can always change my mind. I trust myself enough to know that I'm always going to land on my feet. I have a great track record. I'm still alive through everything.
Yeah.
I'm always going to land on my feet. I can always pick myself back up. So if you have that level of self-esteem, then knowing, man, I can always change my mind. I can always try something different. So if this hasn't been working for me and I go left, I can always turn back. This habit is always here if I want to come back to it. This way of doing things is always here if I want to try it again.
That's it.
You know, and that's it. So one of the questions we always ask on the podcast is, what was one of the darkest moments in your life that led to the most light that you wouldn't change even though it felt horrendous?
I don't know. I've pretty much crushed it my entire life.
Actually, just my whole life
with no drama and no
a
public.
Saint, really? Yes.
So it's funny. It's not funny. But so I had an affair like 8-9 years ago in a relationship. And
you were married, right?
Yeah. Okay. And I wasn't a cheater. And I think when people hear affair, they kind of think, you know, like dude standing by what a lot of people do, right? Like standing by the merch table after shows, just like trying to, and I was an idiot. I was in sort of a relationship that wasn't working, and I wasn't mature enough to fix it. I wasn't brave enough to get out of it.
Or exit right before that.
And, you know, have this affair, immediately fall in love. It's like this 2-year thing. It's so dumb and bad. And then get out of that.
People say dumb and bad, but I think that this stuff happens to more people than people realize because people don't say it out loud.
You know, and I've never talked about this. I don't think this way on a podcast because usually it's me being like, I've made a bunch of mistakes and I'm a piece of shit and blah, blah, blah. But something that really helped me, there's a book by Esther Perel. Have you ever read her?
Yeah, she's amazing.
And it was called, very dumb title, play on words. It was called State of Affairs. And to hear like 40-year-old lawyer women with children say the same dumb shit that I said to myself, like, this is saving the relationship. Suddenly I was like,
the way we preserve ourselves.
I'm not as much of a piece of shit as I thought I was. You know what I mean? Like that's a step. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And so it was awful. And especially because I was this like super self-righteous, like I talked about earlier, like tribalized, like woke, like feminist dude.
Super feminist, right?
Yeah. And like, you know,
super woke.
And I thought it was in like the basic, like, don't attack women. Like that's good, right? But we're so tribalized that I just started getting pushed farther over and over.
More extreme.
And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm this. And the times I would sort of talk about stuff that I wasn't sure about, I was too self-conscious to ask questions, or I was like, oh, a white guy can't question that, whatever.
Yeah.
So, have this affair. The marriage like completely blows up. You know, the girl tries to like kind of be like, who else has been wronged by feminist Jamie Kilstein?
Little campaign.
Yeah. And one girl was like, he DM'd me once, but then I told him I had a boyfriend. He said, I'm sorry. And like, it was kind of,
tried to come to your defense.
Yeah. And so it was all silly. And a lot of stuff was like made up. But because I was like presenting myself as this unflawed person, like people love that. Where it's like, haha.
Of course.
And so, you know, it blew up. I disappeared. I got off social media. I thought the lesson to be learned was don't cheat.
Yeah. Right.
And I was like, okay, well, I haven't cheated since then. Easy. That wasn't a compulsion of me. I was just in a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I remember I was doing Bert Kreischer's podcast, and Bert said to me, I've done it a couple of times. I think this was the first time I did it because we talked about this.
Right.
And Bert said to me, you know, man, you're going to be grateful for all this. He's like, it's a new beginning. And he said, the only new beginnings I ever had were when I started stand-up and when my child was born. And I thought, go fuck yourself.
Right.
You're a rich, happy, married, successful comedian who's like best friends with Joe Rogan.
And you're in pain. And you're sitting there in pain. And you're like,
there's
how
no
can you
solution.
Say this to me?
I'm like, I thought I learned. I haven't cheated.
Right.
And my life still sucks. And I'm still fucking broke. And people still think that I'm like a creepy dude when like I'm not. I just fucked up. All this stuff. And so here we are, like, I don't know, 7 years after doing Bert's podcast. And finally I'm like, nah, fuck, that was the thing that helped me. That was the thing that helped me the most, because if I went down that path of just everything was about me.
Yeah.
And when you're doing like selfish shit, again, you see the fucking, you know, rich dude being shitty to the waiter and blah, blah, blah. And you go, well, I'm never going to be like that.
Yeah.
But you don't realize like you can do like sad boy selfish shit.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Self-indulgence.
Yeah, it's the self-indulgence.
Self-loathing is still self-obsession.
And I'm like, how can I be an asshole? I'm so sad.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And so, and then thinking about like, what was I doing? Like, why was I performing? Was it just for adulation? Was it actually to make a difference? Was it actually for art? All this stuff. And, you know, I think that it's not that like that made me a better person. I'm reading this book called, I think it's called The Second Mountain by David Brooks, who's a New York Times writer, who I don't like a lot of his pundit stuff, but man, this book is phenomenal. And it essentially says that we each have two mountains in our life. And the first mountain is based on getting things, career, money, hot partner, all that stuff. Right. And then there's a valley. And sometimes that valley is just like, I'm fucking miserable. Right. And sometimes that valley is what happened to me, crash and burn. And then there's the second mountain in everyone's life. And that's when you go from happiness, I got a raise, happiness, that girl fucked me, happiness, I got on this TV show, to joy. I just helped someone. Yeah. I just changed that kid's life.
Real fulfillment.
And that's the second mountain. Those are the stories you hear where it's like, yeah, man, I sold my company and I'm like, you know, just like fucking helping poor whoever learn Jiu Jitsu, whatever it is.
Well, and also creating a life for myself that I really like, not because I'm showing off these things that I have, but because this abundance has allowed me to access these things that are fulfilling. Yep. Like I think it's hard when people are like, the only thing that matters is giving, because if I'm not giving to myself, I'm not providing myself with a life that brings me the peace that I want, then I can't do that effectively. Then I turn into the poor me girl again. Yes. Look how much I'm giving. I am. I promise.
I have to catch myself with that, because there's part of me that wants to go like full Jesus and like only be handing out sandwiches. Right. And then I'm like, wait a second. If I actually have more influence and money, I can build foundations, you know, what you want to do. And so.
And also you you have the freedom of not stressing about these things that,
I know.
Like
I always feel bad when I pray that part because it's kind of like, and also like for me, I would like to like not be freaking out all the time and just a little break would be great.
Yeah.
And so, it wasn't like this mistake happened. So but that humility, and humbling, no matter what it was, it could have just been a divorce and not been, just that. But I could have lived on that first mountain forever. Because also all the tragedy, the heartbreak, the fucking,
it fed into your art.
That fed into my art.
Yeah.
So that was just fucking part of it, man.
But I think when it's something that dramatic, when you really hurt somebody else, it's not that you look back and you're grateful that someone got hurt.
Nope.
But it's the pain that caused, like the storm that it brewed, it forced you to look and be like, okay, I cannot continue to be what I'm doing. Whatever I was not looking at, I've got to look at it. And just going back to what we said earlier, sometimes doing it for yourself is not enough motivation.
No.
It takes that drama to really look.
Totally. And a lot of times, like, if you're leading a life that's stagnant, where you are just like quietly suffering, which is like honestly the majority of Americans right now, like depression, isolation, deaths of despair, everything is going up, 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 up. A lot of times, if you don't completely crack, you are looking for some kind of excitement, and that could be an addiction, that could be an affair, that could be whatever, and it will temporarily be like, I figured it out.
Yeah,
this is the solution.
Here's the high.
Yeah, and it's not that. That'll break you down. Sometimes you just need to be broken apart.
Right.
And then once you get shattered, you get to be like, what do I do with this? And it's like, well, it hurt a lot and you don't want to go through it. So if you're not going to die, it's like you come back fucking strong as fuck. And then guess what I get to do now? And I never owned this before. Before I was like, whenever people would compliment me or girlfriends would compliment me, I'd be like, yeah, I'm a good person now. And I'm like, that was it. But now I'm around people who were like, hey, dude, your story can actually save lives. What I thought it was is bury the story. Because I'm a good person now
be the new guy.
I can just be the new guy. And that's great. And what they're saying is like, no. You talk about all that stuff because all that stuff is going to help the person who's going to kill himself because he had an affair or who has this addiction and he thinks his family's going to live, whatever it is.
Because it brings us closer together. Like our strength is really what binds us together is in our weaknesses. Not in our like this. The strengths
you should have thrown
great.
The mic down after that line. That was so good. Yeah.
Well, a lot of these things I'm saying, man, are not my words, right? These are the things I hear of like leaders and in program and like people who are way wiser and smarter.
Who you are surrounded. You don't know them. Again, you are surrounding yourself with them.
Yeah, more experience than I. And I'm like, maybe I can sit into that. Maybe I can believe that. And so, yeah, powerful.
Dude, I'm such a fan of yours, just as like a human being. I know we already did like our exit intros, but I just want to say that again.
We had to come back and record this because I forgot to ask Jamie this question. I'm so glad that we did because it really is our strengths are in our weaknesses.
That was self-hating me. I left feeling so good about myself, and we were like, see you next week. And as I'm about to go home to sleep, I'm like, wait, I didn't talk about the worst thing that happened in my life. And don't you ask people that? Let me rehash it.
It's so important though, because people, if I can see myself in you and then I can see the way that you've worked through it, especially when there's been a lot of pain and not just, it's easy to be excited for the person who like had their own struggle within themselves and then they got cool.
Yeah.
Someone who has hurt other people or made mistakes that are like really hard to live with and then gone to the next point and seeing the way that.
And then just being like, now I just want to live a life where I can just help people.
Yeah.
And not because I feel fucking guilty.
Well, and
but because it's like that's the person I want to be.
People for me that have really high self-esteem that have been through some things like that are people that I want to know.
Me too.
Because that is very, very difficult. Yeah. Like if you're someone who wants to love the person you are and wants to be proud of the person you are, and you figured out how to do that after a lot of that kind of pain.
Instead of, by the way, going the complete opposite route, which is getting bitter and being like, fuck women and like just like spending all day just seething and being like the world's gonna fuck me. John Mulaney did the same thing that fucking I did, and he's playing stadiums and on SNL, and he got the fuck Olivia Munn, and like what did I get? You know, like
being on that side or being in the over guilt or shame, because both of those are self-obsession.
You're so good with pointing that out, because that's the one that's always harder for me, and I always point that out. You're right. I always forget that. I'm sorry.
Being in the guilt and the shame, like, man, that is self-obsession, because that does not help. That, like, I think sometimes being in guilt and shame makes us feel like we're doing the right thing
because we're being so humble and like,
right. And that is not healing. That's staying in the energy of the hurt or the problem or the
You're
thing.
Totally right.
I think that leads to repeated behavior more often than gaining your self-esteem back.
Yes.
And that's not an easy thing to do. So I really love hearing you talk about it. I appreciate that you're open about it. Thanks, because for someone who has listening to this, who has done things that they're not proud of or things that hurt themselves or other people, to be like, okay, this is human. First of all, it doesn't mean that, oh, it's okay, I'm going to do it again, but this is human.
This is human, and you can still not only get out of, I mean, I still have shame, but like feel better about yourself, but like you can actually use that to propel and like be a better person and help a ton of other people.
Sometimes it takes things like that to really refine what your values actually are, going back to.
I didn't have any values except for like yell on stage and get famous.
Well, and even people who think that, the thing is, like, you think you know what your values. Well, first of all, things are always evolving, right? If I look back when I'm 35 at my 25-year-old self, and I think the exact same things about,
you're gonna look back at this exact podcast and be like, what a piece of shit I was.
You know, and also, I mean, hopefully I do it with more compassion than that, and more love
I learned nothing
for my 25-year-old self, right?
Fair.
But it's like, we should be evolving and changing, right? And usually that comes through hardship, and sometimes that ends with that involves other people.
And by the way, society doesn't like that nowadays. We don't like people evolving or changing their mind or becoming friends with someone on the other side, and it's like we should be applauding that shit.
Right.
By the way, if anyone's depressed and my advice didn't personally speak to them, you can also take my story and go, well, at least I'm not that guy, and then that will also make you feel better. So, you know, column A, column B, whatever helps you.
A lot of different routes we can go, but man, thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people, it's great to see ourselves and others recognize behaviors and be like, man, I identify with that, but there's also another side.
Well, thank you for, as my liberal friends say, giving me a safe space.
I will always provide all the safe space. All right, guys, back to the rest of the podcast. Man, Jamie, this was amazing.
Thanks,
Thank you so much for being on, even though you got beat up by kids yesterday and you have this rib. And
it's just a mess. Can I plug my podcast, please?
Yes, please talk about your podcast. And we're going to link it too in the show notes so you guys can check it out.
I don't believe anyone ever goes to the show notes. That's why I'm like,
let me show notes sometimes.
You're very type A.
I do, but please talk about it. That way people know what they're getting themselves into.
Well, I mean, you guys kind of get the gist of it. I'm not going to ramble, but it's called Advice Not Taken with Jamie Kilstein. You can go to Jamie Kilstein podcast.com for all the links. There's videos on YouTube. But if you just look up Advice Not Taken with Jamie Kilstein on Spotify or iTunes, it's there. I'm just really proud of it. And it's the first time I have like studio and producers and video.
Your studio is so nice. I want to go there. It's
it's the best.
So good.
So that, and as I'm doing less stand-up, I'm putting everything I have into that and writing more. If you guys do want to follow me on Instagram, it's at the Jamie Kilstein, where I will do comedy sketches. I still have some jiu-jitsu sketches that like I want to start doing again. But
those are fun. We have some.
We have a bunch of them. That one did really well. I forgot what it was. Like
we have some
three
super
guys not
goofy
to
ones.
Be when you like roll with a girl or something. Oh like that.
Yes, the 3 guys not to be when you roll with a woman.
And then Ginny Frey got in that and it was great.
So good.
But yeah, so that's all on Instagram at the Jamie Kilstein, and fuck Twitter. I mean, but I'm just know I'm popular there, and then follow me on Instagram, please.
Amazing, man. Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate you being on. That was
I love you.
It was so fun. As usual, guys, like, follow, subscribe, whatever platform you're on, and leave a review. And as I always say, I really am open to all the feedback. I really mean it, as long as it's like really maybe not a hate mail. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but really how you feel. Like, I really want to know what's helpful, what's not, what questions do you like, what questions should I ask more, what was the value brought, because the goal is to continue to make these more and more valuable as we go. And I need the feedback to make sure that they're getting that goal accomplished. So share it with someone that you would find it helpful. You can post it on your story, all that good stuff on the IG. And make sure you guys follow Jamie. Check out all of his stuff. We'll link it if you do want to go in the show notes. And if not, then
God bless you if you do, man.
God bless you. And go to the Advice Not Taken podcast on everything, right? That's just linked on Spotify, Apple, all the places. And thank you guys so much for listening. As always, make sure you guys check back in for the next episode in a couple weeks, and we'll see you then.